When we talk about mental health, there really isn't any person that is an exception to being impacted directly or indirectly. I learned personally with my father, who suffered from PTSD. He served in the Vietnam War. He also served in Germany and was in the U.S. Army for 9 years. Learning about PTSD was very difficult, especially at a time when it hadn't even been identified yet. Right now, there is help for veterans, but I learned something very interesting from the person you're going to hear from. His name is Derek Collins, and he's actually the director for Firewatch programs. They help veterans in need. He told me that typically someone who served in the military, they won't ask for help, but if you offer help, they are more likely to take it. So this time we're going to be talking about mental health for veterans and those serving in the military and how there is help for you if you want it. Derek, one of the first questions that I have, and it's something from a previous conversation that we've had about mental illness, is that people in the military have a hard time asking for help, but they can accept help. If you could talk about that.
Yeah, so one of the first things they kind of when they put you into boot camp, no matter what branch of service you're in, is you're expected to do things and to get them done. And the idea of asking for help is kind of stigmatized. It's about how much you can carry, how much you can do on your own, because if you need help, then it takes away other people from the mission type of deal. And we give people get awards for things for basically not asking for help and accomplishing things. But the thing is, the military is also a very team-driven environment. So how did we ever get anything done? Well, and I use this story, if you permit me. After boot camp, all Marines go to a month of infantry training, no matter what they're going to do. Then you go under class. So during this one exercise, we were on a march, and it was a time march. And we have a career infantry sergeant was leading us. He's our instructor, marching down the road in North Carolina, and the transportation school drives by their big trucks. And the instructor stops the truck, says, "Hey, Sergeant, do you guys want to ride?" And to our surprise, the sergeant said, "Yeah, we'll take the ride." So we get told to get in the back of the truck, and we're kind of confused a little bit. A bunch of, fresh out of boot camp privates, like, is this going to be like a trick or something? He's like, "I can't believe you actually got in the truck and get off." And as we're driving out, he looks at us, he says, "I can tell by the confused looks on your face, you don't understand what just happened." He says, "A good Marine would have finished the march." He says, "But a smart Marine takes the ride when offered." And then when I look back over my career when I served in the Marine Corps, is that's how we really got things done. It was not asking for help. It was, either somebody coming along, if you were assigned a task by yourself and you're struggling with it, somebody comes in, "Hey, do you need a hand, or would you like a hand?" And then you could say yes. So the stigma was never on accepting the help. It was always on asking for the help. So it would have been, if I said, "Hey, can somebody give me a hand with this?" Then he's like, "Oh, you can't handle that." But it was always, "Hey man, you need some help with that." Absolutely. Can you grab the other end of that and help? So when it comes to veterans, we carry that through, post career, where it's this concept of asking for help is kind of, it shows a weakness that you don't want to show folks. But if somebody comes on and sees you're struggling with something or having a hard time with something, and they say, "Hey, do you need some help?" then you feel more open to accepting that help, because there's no stigma on accepting it. It was always just for asking it.
That is a really interesting story, but it makes perfect sense though. So when you talk about weakness or being in the military, mental illness, you think it's a big issue when it comes to those that are still active duty and those that are veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things they used to tell us all the time was that whenever you would do anything hard, that the pain you're feeling or something, it would say it's weakness leaving the body, is what they used to say. But the problem is that, and then also that everything's all in your mind. You could physically accomplish just about anything. It's just, was it the mental readiness to do it? And that's kind of the secret of the military, is that physically anybody in decent shape can do all the things about to ask you, but it's just you get to the point where you have to negotiate with your body, past those limits. That's all mental things. So when we come out on the other side, it's kind of a switch with that. And so you bring a lot of mental things that you brought through, all the good and some of the bad with you. when you come out. But then now you don't really have a support structure around you for when the bad mental stuff starts coming out, which is why you see some folks and tend to be when you get a little bit older that you begin to realize this, and that's when you kind of begin to congregate with more veterans and folks that share the same experience. When you're first coming out, I mean, you're the first thing to your mind is want to reconnect with folks because you're trying to negotiate this new world, but you don't really know that you're going to need this mental support network that goes along with
Well,
it.
I've heard so much about this general population and or people saying, GP or Gen Pop. Why is it so different? I mean, you go into the military
Yeah.
and you become accustomed to the rules and the standards and the structure. This is your job. So why is it then challenging, in your opinion, for people once they get out of the military? Is the structure that different from everyday life?
Well, the thing is that we so when you get out, you heard the saying you can't go home again because you feel like and the idea is that everything has changed since you left. But the reality is it's not, things stayed the same. You changed. You take somebody that's 17, 18, 19 years old or in their early 20s in the case of officers, and you put them between 3 months to a year of almost of completely rewiring everything they know about life, especially in the Navy and the Marine Corps, because I mean, we change your day one in boot camp, they're changing your language. A floor is no longer a floor, it's a deck. It's a hat, a doorway is a hatch. Your flashlight, we call them moonbeams. It's just, and they do that on purpose because they're trying to rewire your brain so you can think in this one way. And they invest a lot of time and effort in doing that so that you can function in the military way. But they don't spend any time and effort on the outside um, teaching you how to go back to the way you used to be, how things used to work. So now you're coming out into a culture that that hadn't changed, but you changed, and you're trying to readapt to that culture. And there's really not anybody out there to help you do that. There's no programs, there's no civilian qualification course that you get a ribbon or a task to do that. So you're coming out, so it doesn't matter. So I've heard people also use it that it's almost going to be in prison, the entire culture space of prison, and then you come back to the real world, and you're a completely different person. I tell folks all the time that there's still things after 30 years being out, certain phrases I still use, or certain um, you know ways I'll walk, and even like certain smells will trigger things. And
Wow.
we went through that stuff. So one of the things I did, I was on my squadron's chemical response team. So the idea was that if we were ever chemically attacked, I'd be one of the people in our squadron that would go to a specific place, set up a station to process people through. So because I had to go through the gas chamber a few more times than people normally do, so I can smell something that remotely smells like CS gas, and I'll stop breathing automatically
Oh
just
my
because
goodness.
it's just
Your brain's just,
yeah, and that's where it goes. But nobody teaches you how to do that, and you have to kind of reorient yourself. And nobody's there to help you do that. So you've got to kind of figure out your way. And so, like I said, I feel like it took me about. I don't feel like I fully transitioned out of the military until about 25 years after I got out.
so
As I
then tell me this. Do you believe that it would be a great opportunity if the military created like an orientation to go back into general population?
It would be, but it's kind of the double-edged sword of the military service. They have an invested interest in completely on the front end, changing your culture to fit the military culture. They really don't have an incentive to do so on the other side because the mission still has to get done. So anytime they would have to spend retraining you for civilian life is they're losing you on off a mission to do that. So again, there's no really incentive for them to do that. It would be very helpful if they would allow that. And I think with some of the higher ranks, the senior enlisted officers, there are programs to kind of give them an opportunity to do that, to interact with civilian life again through job training and other opportunities. But for lower ranks, folks that only spend like one enlistment to two enlistments in, everything you do every day is so mission critical that if you're not out there doing your job, then it's not getting done. And that's really the race. So there's no incentive for them to do that. if we could find a way to incentivize, I think it would be more helpful for the military in certain ways. But to them, there's no incentive for them to do that.
So then, as far as the discussion of PTSD,
Hmm.
it's something that I feel like people don't really feel comfortable talking about or don't want to talk about. I know you and I had a brief discussion, as I had shared with you, that my father was diagnosed with PTSD in addition to maybe 6 to 7 other health issues. But when it comes to PTSD, where do you think people are now in having a discussion about it, and veterans or people that are still active duty getting tested for it and acknowledging that it's real?
Well, that's the thing is the big thing was the acknowledgement. That's when you look at over the phrases that we've used throughout history from World War One. I think it's called shell shock. And again, it's one of these things that uh, the military believes that the mental readiness is the number one thing, and that your mind can really just overcome whatever it is. But and you can't physically, but what is it when the mind gets broken? How do you overcome that? And so I think we've come a long way, and now that we got the term, post-traumatic stress, and people are starting to understand that a little bit more. I think the problem still lies in the way people assume you get post-traumatic stress for military service, where they all think it's combat related, which is not. I mean, there's other things that have happened. We have folks getting out dealing with military sexual trauma that manifests as PTSD. Folks, some traumas you see similar for folks working in medical fields and police fireworks, where they weren't directly involved in the incident that it caused, but you're having to go look at the bodies and deal with all that stuff. So, like I said, there's folks that go through combat that may never have experienced PTSD on the outside of combat, and then there's folks that have never been in combat in the military, but through other things that have happened, other traumas, have PTSD. And that's it's the it's the mind thing, and that's the top thing. And then you have other um the other forms of where we have or you got, I call it mind, body, and soul. Where so the PTSD is that's kind of the injury to the mind. Then you have the bodily injury, which manifests to traumatic brain injuries nowadays, where folks are when I was in the military back in the early '90s, all of our gear was designed based on lessons we learned in Vietnam. Then so if you would have put somebody that was kitted out in 1990 when I was into modern combat, we wouldn't survive with that gear on because it changed. So what they did is that they adapted to the war on terror. You see people now surviving attacks and injuries that would have killed somebody, 20 years prior. So, but what's happened though is especially with the IED problem, and the attacks like that, you have the traumatic brain injury where your brain is getting, sloshed around in your skull, and actually physically being damaged and causes physical altering. You hear the term people say, well, that's not the same person that left here. Well, that's right. Your brain actually changes. You become slightly different. So, but a lot of people mistake some of that for a mental health issue when it's a physical issue manifesting as a brain issue. And then you have what I call the soul aspect of it, the spiritual aspect of moral injury. When you're called upon as somebody that serves in the military, sometimes there's a mindset you get into, that you have to get into in order to kill another human being, no matter what the cause is. So people that go into combat a lot of times, especially I tell folks that, especially if you grew up in a church environment, where you're talking, Jesus loves you, thou shalt not kill, God loves everybody, and then you're put in situations where you have to view the enemy as somebody less than that, to do that. Then you come back home and it's, hey, Jesus loves you, Jesus loves the children, just all this stuff, and it's and that manifests called moral injury, which I view that as more of a spiritual issue. So you have all three working together, and a lot of people sometimes conflate all that with just PTSD. So it's really having a deeper understanding of, knowing that each are a little bit different, each have a different path that you have to take. So it's figure out which is the path, which is the underlying issue to do that.
So then that brings me to this whole epiphany that a person could literally have an injury by way of mind, body, and soul all at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
Wow.
one combination of them, or you could have PTSD combined with a TBI, or a
Yeah.
moral injury combined with PTSD, or just or if you're very, very lucky to escape all that together. But then you look at folks that, that didn't, so then maybe some issues there because you are fine and nobody and the other folks weren't that were in the same problems as you are. So
Right.
it's really complicated. And I think that what a lot of people do when they look at programs like ours at the Firewatch and other programs at the VA, they all just think it's a one step approach. We just paint everything with one brush, and we can just throw money at it to fix it, but it takes a lot more. Like most things in life, the it's complicated.
So what's the best way for active duty and for veterans to get help for their mental health and their overall well-being, in your opinion? What's the best thing for them to do, whether they're active or veteran?
I think probably the best thing, it's kind of what we do at the Firewatch is we have this idea that it's it's not waiting for the veteran to say they need help. It's you being more proactive as a friend or an ally or a family member of a veteran and saying, listen, hey, I can tell that there's something wrong here. There's something, there's no judgment, but you need to maybe you need to reach out to somebody. Let me help you reach out to somebody. And you may have to, again, it's not like they may just go, you're right. You're absolutely right. Or it may take more prodding, and that's the thing is being able to stick with it and not accept no, no for an answer from them when there's really a serious sign, or just or at the very least, just being there for them and to encourage them. Eventually you'll get through. That's the thing, and that's I think as a society, that's why we train more than just veterans, because if veterans could solve the issue, we could have solved it together. But it takes that really community, the community that we left home to serve is the community that can bring us back together.
So tell me a little bit about Firewatch, the purpose of Firewatch, and anyone that will be watching this
Yeah.
that could benefit from Firewatch.
Yeah, so the Firewatch is basically, we were started in 2019 as an agreement between the 5 counties in Northeast Florida to provide a more of a community-based approach to veteran suicide. We were tired of seeing the numbers go up. And you hear the 911 calls and all that stuff. And we said, what if we could get to somebody before it's a call 911, or before we're dealing with the aftermath of a veteran suicide. And we just know, like I said, that suicide is a preventable issue. The chances are if you get to somebody before, if they're in the middle of a suicidal crisis or before, then chances are they will not go back into it if you can get them the help they need. So that's what the Firewatch begins. We began as first we gathered a lot of data about veteran suicide here in Florida. The VA drives most of that data, but only goes to the state level. But we went through, we said we want to see county by county where are the problems and what's the issues. And then from there, we developed a program where we go out and we teach people, whether you're a veteran, church, organization, business, what are the signs of a veteran crisis? How do you ask that question? That's the big thing, is asking the question, are you thinking about harming yourself? And then validating what that, not being judgmental or not, quick to give them a solution, but to validate, let them understand that, it's perfectly normal to feel this way, and then from there, getting them to resources. There are so many resources available for our veterans, a lot more when I got out. But a lot of people don't know they exist, or even know what they are, or even know where to start. As one person put it, a veteran could drown in a sea of goodwill because they don't know where to turn to. So we solved that problem at the Firewatch by putting together a good resource list so we can get them to either, something to do with employment or rental assistance or substance abuse, or even just straight mental health resources to get them to that point before it's that 911 call or the national crisis line. That they're getting ready to harm themselves.
And so if someone wants to get in contact with Firewatch, or if there's a veteran that's in a dark space and thinking of harming themselves, where should they reach out?
So if somebody's interested in the Firewatch, they can go to thefirewatch.org, which is our website. They can either take the training online, or there's a way to contact somebody like myself up here in Northeast Florida or in our other regions to come in and do the training for them. If they're a veteran seeking help, then I encourage them to call a 988 which is the national crisis line. They'd be able to help them directly. And so, that's probably the best option, or they can even contact us, and it may take us a minute to get back to them because we're not set up as a call center. But usually we can find a way to reach out and give them the help they need. But basically, we're about that prevention. It's getting to those veterans before they're having to call somebody. That's our goal. There's no shame. It's we've asked, tremendous. We've asked tremendous things from our men and women in uniform over the past forever, since since the founding of our nation. And it's and you're talking about a group of people that don't join because the pay is great, or the food is great, or the benefits are great. It's a career path that's really self-sacrificial, and we ask a lot of that from our men and women. And so don't be afraid to seek the help you deserve. It's not a gift. It's not a it's not this is what you sign up for. This is what society deserves to give you for your service. And I can't think of any other way of so thank you for your service, but then helping a veteran with the need that they have.
And if you or anyone that you know would like to learn more about Firewatch and other resources for veterans, visit this story on our website, news4jax.com.